People believe that the XPulse 200 is an adventure bike. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. It is a good dual sport bike, a bike that does road riding and off-road riding quite well, but it lacks the highway legs to be called a proper adventure motorcycle. So to address that, we've got the brand new XPulse 210 from Hero, which has better performance on and off the road. So is this finally the affordable adventure bike that we've been waiting for? Now this XPulse 210 has been built brand new from the ground up and shares almost nothing with the XPulse 200. But what it does share with another bike is that motor. This is the same liquid-cooled 210cc motor that you get on the Karizma XMR 210. But it has been retuned. So it makes slightly less power but slightly more torque than the Karizma. And to make that torque more usable, you've got a bigger rear sprocket as well, which is 4 teeth more than the Karizma's rear sprocket. And that makes this bike quite tractable when you're at slow speeds. You can carry speeds of 25 kph in 4th gear without any juddering, or even 30 in 5th gear is no problem at all. But if you're used to bigger motors with a lot more mid-range grunt, that's where the XPulse 210 feels a bit lacking. It's okay at the bottom end, up to around 4000 RPM it's fine, but from 4 to 7000 RPM, there's not much happening in terms of acceleration. But get it past 7 and the motor starts pulling pretty quickly, and it's actually quite fun to ride beyond that point. But the best part is, even at these higher revs, the bike feels quite refined. There is a slight buzz you feel on the foot pegs, but it's quite minor. While the goal of this slightly larger engine was to make the XPulse a better highway touring bike, this is something I feel hasn't worked out all that well. It can cruise comfortably at 85 to 90 km per hour, and it can hold speeds of 100 kph quite easily as well. This new XPulse does get a 6-speed gearbox after all. But 100 in 6th comes at a fairly noisy 7000 plus RPM. While the motor doesn't really feel stressed at this point and has a bit of performance in reserve to make overtakes on the highway, it doesn't sound too happy at these speeds. It's definitely a big improvement over the XPulse 200, but if it's fast highway touring you're after, you'd be better off with something with a larger engine. Where this engine really shines is the extra bottom end torque over the XPulse 200. And this really helps if you're riding off the road. Of course, you're not going to fly on off-road terrain like on the Himalayan or the KTM Adventure, but if you're climbing on some tricky trails, that extra torque is really appreciated. And it requires much less throttle and clutch input compared to the 200 when you're riding off the road. And that makes it a lot easier to ride. And honestly, for new riders, I would recommend this over the 200 any day. Since the XPulse 210 is a brand new bike, the ergonomics have changed as well compared to the XPulse 200. Now the seat height is just 830mm, but the bike is quite slim, which means getting your feet on the ground is very easy. Now I am 5'9" and I can transport the bike comfortably from the seat. The other thing that's also changed is the fuel tank, which is now 50mm shorter than before, which means you sit further forward on the bike. And that means the foot peg position also has changed compared to where you're sitting. So if you're riding on the road and you come to an off-road trail, if you want to get into a stand-up posture, all you do is just get your butt off the seat and immediately get a grip on the tank and the seat. So riding off-road is quite easy on this bike. It's a great posture for riding, but the bar is a bit on the lower side, which means you have to be in a slightly more attack posture when you're tackling off-road trails. But if you're taller, you might find these handlebars a little bit on the lower side and you will require risers. But for pretty much everybody else, they should be just fine. In terms of suspension, the 210 does get a big upgrade over the 200. It's got a fatter front fork, which can take a lot more abuse when riding off the road, and it's got more travel as well. Now, of course, it doesn't have an upside down fork yet, which some people might think is a bit of a letdown, but it keeps the cost of the bike down, which is definitely a good thing in my book. And the same story at the rear as well. The rear shock again has more travel, and this time it's a linked monoshock, which offers you much finer control over damping. So if you're riding off-road or at slow speeds on bumps and bad roads, the ride quality is actually quite nice. It's not flush by any means, but it still handles everything quite well. But it starts going faster and the rear starts to feel a little bit on the stiffer side. Especially if you go over speed breakers a little fast, the rear can give you a jhatka on your backside. But that can be easily fixed by carrying a pillion rider or playing with the rear preload. Overall, the XPulse 210 suspension really shines when riding off the road. That's where it performs the best. And speaking of riding off-road, it's got 220mm of ground clearance, which is the same as that on the XPulse 200. And that's more than enough for most people when riding on trails. And because the XPulse 210 is built on a dual cradle frame and gets a soil metal bash plate as standard, even if you do hit a rock on a trail ride, the chances of it damaging your engine or oil sump are actually quite few. This XPulse 210 is great in the city and not the best on the highway. But come to an off-road trail and that's where it really comes alive. Although it is slightly heavier than the 200, the 210 still feels light and easy to manage when crawling up tricky trails. Plus the engine's improved bottom end torque and the bike's better suspension makes it one of the easiest bikes to ride off-road. It's like a proper little mountain goat able to get over rocks, broken paths and difficult trails with the utmost of ease. If you have never been a fan of off-road riding before, then just take this XPulse 210 to a nearby trail. I guarantee you, it will change your mind and make you fall in love with not just it, but off-road riding in general. To aid in off-road riding, the new XPulse 210 comes with 3 ABS modes: road, trail and off-road. In road mode, you have full dual channel ABS. In trail, the rear ABS is turned off while the front ABS intervention is reduced. And finally, in off-road mode, both front and rear ABS is completely turned off. Apart from the multiple ABS modes on the top variant, it also gets a 4.5-inch color TFT screen with smartphone connectivity for call and message alerts, music control and turn-by-turn navigation. The screen does look fairly clean and easy to read, and the matte finish ensures that you don't get too much glare in bright sunlight. But get the sun above and a little behind you at around mid-afternoon and this screen becomes completely unreadable. So is the XPulse finally a proper adventure bike? No, not really. That said, it's still a better dual sport bike than it ever was. And the bigger engine does help on the highway if you do plan to go touring on it. If you're a current XPulse 200 owner, jumping on the 210 might not make too much sense for you. But if you're looking for your first off-road or dual sport bike, I would recommend the 210 over the 200 any day of the week. Although it's a bit more expensive, it's offering a lot more kit, making it better value for money as well. But if you want a proper hardcore off-road bike, then the XPulse 200 Pro is your go-to. The 210 Pro is still a little ways away. And if you want an XPulse Adventure, I guess you'll have to wait till the XPulse 400 comes out.